Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Hall of Flowers Core Conversations. I'm Lincoln Barnett. Our first conversation is expanding your retail footprint, followed by a Q&A. So if you do have questions after the conversation, please line up here, and we'll get those questions answered. So without further ado, please help me welcome to the stage our moderator, Ross Gardiner of MG Mag, and our speakers, Elliot Lewis of Catalyst Co., and Chris Lane of Airfield Supply Co.
Hello, hello. It's nice to be back, isn't it? How is everybody? Great, okay. Well, I'm very excited to be introducing this panel for us today. It is about, as Lincoln mentioned, expanding your retail footprint. So the structure of the cannabis industry places a lot of value in retail, chiefly because the retailers really own the relationship with the customer. So the entire supply chain, all the products and everything like that, all lead to the store, and it's the retailer that makes that really important connection. So, and right now there's a lot of states, municipalities are adding more licenses, there's a lot of growth, so there's lots of opportunities for retailers to be able to grow, and that's really what we want to talk about here today. And we've got a couple of different strategies from a couple of different characters here. So, first, we have Elliot Lewis, who some of you may know from his LinkedIn. He is an incredibly prolific, a provocateur of the cannabis industry, perhaps. But he's the founder and CEO of the Catalyst Cannabis Company. You have 7 active locations, a lot more coming online, fantastic businesses. And we also have Chris Lane, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for Airfield Supply, which is one of, if not the biggest single location in the state of California, a powerhouse from Silicon Valley. So, I'm going to kick it off by asking you a quick question, sir, because if I heard correctly, you just sued the state of California, did you not?
Yeah, that's correct.
Very good. Round of applause for suing the state of California. Can you tell us a little bit about it and just give us it in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, it gets frustrating just to watch the legislator and the government and the governor himself. They don't give a shit about us in the cannabis industry. They're treating us like second-class business citizens. Every other business gets treated one way. The cannabis business gets treated the other way. And if they want to have a successful, thriving industry that actually creates jobs, safe working conditions, good labor conditions, et cetera, they need to lower the fucking taxes. And the thing that really bothers me is if they came out and they were honest and they said, hey, you know what, the program's not working, we really can't do anything about enforcement. And look, we're not, just to be super clear, our objective here is not to have them go out and enforce on the burner distros or the BM or anything like that. This is a symptom of the problem in the California regulatory body. And they all know, yet they fail to admit it. Just coming out and saying, hey, our program's an abject failure would be meaningful, but they won't do it. So through litigation and the discovery process, we believe that we're gonna get a treasure trove of discovery. We're gonna expose them for the fake ass, narcissistic, political animals that they are. And when we get Lori Ajax and Nicole Elliott and Madura, whatever his name is at the CDFTA, and we get them under oath for 8 hours, they have to answer to us. And when we get our discovery, I think it's gonna illustrate that not only do they know the program's a failure, but because of politics, they're too embarrassed to admit it. And we've given up on hoping the legislature is going to help us or the governor is going to hear us. So all we got really left, and I've said this before, free speech, which we love. That's fucking easy.
Yeah, baby.
Litigation, which, you know, we've litigated against a lot of cities. Now we're litigating against the state. And then initiatives. So we're writing initiatives up and down the state. Another big problem is there's a bottleneck at the retail level. So you'll hear about them. I don't want to give the names yet, but they're starting to pop out. So we're writing initiatives. And really at the end of the day, I think it will take a statewide initiative, to change things. But ultimately, one of the big goals, if I'm being honest, of this litigation is to embarrass the fuck out of these fake ass government officials and make them sit in the chair and answer questions so they can't spin them how they want.
Superb, man. Like, how can we kind of keep up with this, or how can people in the industry support what you're doing? Is there a petition or something that we can raise out? Should we do something like that?
Well, you know, for now, these things take a lot of time. I have a little bit of experience, not to go down a rabbit hole, but we did sue One West Bank some years back. It's going to be a long process. You know, it's been filed out of Orange County. They have 30 days to respond. And then we start making discovery requests. we start deposing people. My guess is there's going to be a treasure trove of information. What are they going to do? They're going to try to get protective orders, protect their witnesses, not give us the discovery. We'll have to file motions. So I think it's going to be an unfolding story. You know, I'm surprised at the interest that initially has been picked up by all the reporters. But I think the reason for that is they're all like working on a story for the last year. And now that we went out and litigated, it kind of brought it together. I think as the discovery process goes and we start finding stuff and we get them under oath and they have to make admissions that they know their program is failing, the story will continue to unfold. But I think it will be a slow bleed. I mean, you know, I liken it to like, you know, the whole Chris Christie email where, you know, because these motherfuckers are so arrogant and they're so cocky and they're so incompetent, I'm sure they're emailing back and forth all sorts of stuff. So once we get the discovery and we get to depose people and we get more information what's really going on, I think that will continue the story. And they're refusing right now, just one last point, to tell us how much legal cannabis is being grown in the state of California, because we don't know if it's 2 times, 3 times, or 4 times more legal cannabis is being grown than coming out the other end on retail. So, you know, but, you know, I always want to make the point, because I think some people are getting a little fucked up. The ultimate objective here is to expose fake government officials and get the taxes lower. They shouldn't tax cannabis any different.
Superb, man. So thank you very much for filling us in on that. So we'll get on to the topic here, and so retail expansion. And Chris, so Airfield Supply has one store, right? But you have managed to do a fantastic job maximizing the revenue of that space by adding different kinds of appendages and deepening the business. So I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about that and why Airfield has gone in that direction as opposed to accumulating lots of licenses and opening up lots of locations.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having us here, everybody. Cheers, everybody out there. So Airfield, as you mentioned, it's a vertically integrated dispensary, production, grow, delivery, e-commerce, everything based out of San Jose. We've been around for just under 12 years now, about 7 years under the Airfield brand. And so over the course of that time, you know, obviously there's a lot of different strategies of scale. For us, when we looked at scale, we always have sort of come back to our core values, which the mission of Airfield has always been about helping everyone make the most out of life's journey every day. That's where it began in 2010 as a medical facility. You know, our founder and CEO, Mark Matlich, has always been very driven by that concept and built around the values of that, which means curated products, incredible customer service, and guidance, right? Not trying to sell products, but truly trying to get people to where they want to go. So when we've looked at building the business, we've always gone back to that core and those values and said, okay, what do we do to serve the market, to serve the customer, whether you're new to cannabis, whether you've been smoking for your whole life, whether you're trying to find your way away from opioids or alcohol or whatever it is, you know, figure out how we can serve the mission. And so it's always been about sort of the articulations of the brand. At first, retail was obviously the thing. Then we wanted to look at e-commerce. You know, we started scaling in e-commerce. We wanted to start scaling in delivery. You know, we wanted to figure out how do we articulate our brand best as possible in those things. So when it came to e-commerce, you know, we were working on a plug-and-play platform, but we were taxing that out, breaking it, you know, every single day. When you're seeing 1,000, 2,000 people come through every single day. So we went ahead and developed our own e-commerce platform, built it on Adobe Magento, you know, spent 9 months building it because we wanted to create, you know, the best articulation of that shopping experience online. Same thing with delivery. You know, when we looked at delivery, we wanted to figure out, okay, what does our customer want? We're right in the middle of Silicon Valley. We see a really wide selection of customers, you know, from much, you know, more price conscious and budget conscious and high volume consumers to, you know, literally tech CEOs and definitely not professional athletes that are playing in stadiums all around the Bay Area all the time. And so, you know, we want to make sure that we get the balance for all those different people. So expansion for us has been about moving in different ways and providing value. There's always that value exchange opportunity that's out there as a retailer. And so we want to look at everything and say, where can we bring it in? Where can we bring in more education? We build a shop and shop that's dedicated to education. We want to bring in more exposure to products. So we create interactive touchscreens and we use machine learning for our e-commerce platform to suggest what products you might like. So for us, it's about all the different ways we can touch it and not just, you know, physically expanding sometimes.
Is there quite a bit of pressure, you would say, being in Silicon Valley to make sure that the tech on your e-commerce platform is A+? Like, I was wondering that.
Yelp reviews, man, they're brutal. But yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is. And I think it also, it comes from us too. I mean, I've been a consultant for this company for over 7 years and been the CMO for over just about 3. Prior to that, I worked in consumer tech, and you hear it in any industry when you're in the area that it's got to be good enough. But I think that's part of the thing with cannabis too, just in general, is people have made so many compromises to date on the way that they're willing to get it because they're just fucking happy to get it right now, right? It's like this age of accessibility. But really what we're in is an age of experience with everything else, right? We use Uber to get around. We use DoorDash to get our food. We use Instacart. But when it comes to weed, you're happy to stand in an hour-long line to go up to a podium and get it, which is crazy. So like, we do kind of owe the world a better experience. And I think that's where we're really focused on driving the industry forward. And it's like, let's make shopping and consuming and being a part of a lifestyle around cannabis the same as anywhere else. It doesn't have to be your only lifestyle. It can be, anything you want. You can fit it into any lifestyle, but we need to make that easy. We don't want to make it a pain in the ass.
Amazing, man. And Elliot, your expansion's gone in a totally different direction. You got lots of stores, right? 7 currently. You've got what, 20 by next year? Why don't you tell me about that? Tell me how the expansion's going, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm just always interested to hear that there, so many different approaches, and admire, all the technical approach and everything they've done as far as being able to attract customers. We're not nearly that smart. So, as far as our approach, it's just real basic. The guy right there with the camera, that's our entire marketing department. My wife, who we just like smoke weed at night and come up with a few wild ideas. And then, 2 of our main purchasers. So, our motto is pretty simple: fire weed at fire prices. We don't market. We barely even touch weed maps. We just let word of mouth hopefully take over. As far as the expansion, we've been really good at that, winning licenses and being able to expand. So we have the 7 open stores. We'll have 3 more before Thanksgiving. Should be about 13 by year end, about 20 by mid-year next year. And a lot of that had to do with just, we never had the funding, right? And we pitched this business model to bankers up and down. Finally, we got a tiny little tranche, and they looked at us like we're fucking morons. Plus, I walk in the room, I look half homeless. I'm not that attractive to a banker that wants to loan money, right? And I told them, no, this is the way to do it. So now as we open stores, we're getting a little more attention, but we've been able to win them in a political fight. So we never bought any licenses. One a little early on, we did like a buyout, but I think we got 28, 29, we've won all them in a competitive licensing process. So, we're going to open up all through the Inland Empire. We have a few coming up here to Northern California, and it's like, being at a roulette table where 80% of the time we're winning and we're getting 40 to 1 odds. So we put up $100,000 on risk, and then we're able to try to, win it out in a political fight. So we're really thorough. In a perfect world, I'd like to say that, we're always the best applicant. We tell them about our community outreach, which is all authentic and real, and, how we fight for racial justice, and all our stores are UFCW. But look, it's politics. It's a knife fight. When it comes to that side, we play for keeps. But that's really been our core competency to start is winning licenses. Now we got a little money behind us, not a lot compared to our competitors. We're really proud that we've got as far as we have with about 5 cents on the dollar of the rest of the industry. But we've just done that from applying in a competitive process, and where the fields are super limited, they're giving away 2 retails, 50 people chasing them, we've been able to win. Giving out 4 retails, we've been able to win. And then if we don't win, if we win, generally, we think the process was fair and we totally agree with it. If we don't win, we think we got fucked and it was corrupt. And usually that's true, by the way. Actually, almost always. So at the end of the day, we've been accused of being litigious. We do litigate. I call it relentlessly pursuing justice. So we've been able to get a lot of licenses that way through the litigation process, where in these municipalities, not just the state, we've touched on that, these motherfuckers are so corrupt. They drag garbage applicants up all the time, not the big boys. And then you're able to point that out. And usually the easiest thing for them to do if you're making a lot of noise is just to placate you and give you a license. So, part of the small funding we had, and it's our personality and our culture, I call us bare knuckle fighters. We're gritty. We go out there city by city. We put our fists up and we fight. And now we've gone from the reactive process to the proactive process, where we're going to be writing initiatives up and down the state, because we've taken polling all over the fucking state. You got cities that are 70% in favor of cannabis retail, and the politicians are failing to act. So we're writing more initiatives. You'll hear about them soon, because I'm sworn to some secrecies. That's a big part of what we're going to do. So we got to build out what we got, and then continue to, focus on getting new ones in the pipe because they take a couple years to get open. So we're laying the groundwork now is what we're going to open in 23 and 24. But we never really spent any money on marketing. We're not really smart enough to figure that out. So we just do fire weed at fire prices. The cool kids know the menu. They keep it hot, and hopefully word of mouth takes over.
Amazing, man. And to talk actually a little bit about marketing, Chris, this is your role at the company, obviously. And, you know, they've been around for 12 years, an institution in San Jose. But, you know, obviously, as competition has popped up with other stores and delivery services and things like that in the area, surely you have had to continue to grow and keep searching for customers. So just by contrasting that, you know, fire weed, fire prices, like what have you guys done on a more sort of technical level? How do you approach marketing today, and how's that changed over the time that you've been with the company?
Fire data, fire strategies.
There it is. There it is. Did I not tell you we had two different personalities and two different strategies here, folks?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's true. I think the first thing to think about that we see a lot is everyone's talking about, and obviously we're here at the center of California cannabis in a lot of ways right now, and you know, we're talking about this industry that's like so progressed, and it's in its third iteration, right, of the Matrix, or whatever the fuck we want to call it, and like, it's really not though to the consumer. Like to most people on a daily basis, cannabis is still completely in its infancy, right? So the audiences that we're largely targeting right now are probably known cannabis consumers, right? They probably have some relationship with products already, and so targeting those people, that's simply just data modeling and being effective and knowing where they are, what influences them, and ultimately how you can get in front of them with the right kind of reach and the right kind of frequency to get the message going. But really, like the huge opportunities that are sitting out there, too, are the audiences that are not addressed at all right now. I mean, everyone's talked about the Chardonnay mom, right, and the pill popper, and that's a bad demo, but like, you know what I mean?
Man, we want them.
But like,
you know, we don't want them popping pills anymore. You know,
yeah,
we want them. That's important to reach those people.
But honestly, there's a lot of people out there that don't know they need to find cannabis yet. So targeting those people, it's looking at the same thing. So you have to constantly be finding where people are spending their time and figuring out how you can go. I mean, the Bay Area has millions and millions of people that we can tap into on a daily basis. You know, between retail experience, you know, Airfield is built around a high-end boutique retail but approachable environment where you can really have like an experience. You can learn, you can talk with someone, you be exposed to products. But e-commerce offers the same thing, and we can drive a lot of action through e-com and then obviously execute through delivery. And so for us, when we're looking at scaling market, it's looking at how do we continue to provide value for that current core customer group, but then how do we look at that next phase, those different targets? Where do they spend their time? How do they get influence? What don't they believe in, right? What kind of bullshit do you get called on from them all the time? And then you build programming that hits it. You show the authenticity to it. We're obviously super focused on community engagement. We just sponsored the first concert in San Jose in 2 years, which was an incredible show. But like, literally, we had people coming up to us and just being like, thank you for putting on this show. Like, my life has fucking sucked for the last year and a half. And like, those kind of things really do make a difference. But if you can open that up and you can use those times to offer education and offer opportunity, then you connect it to the product experience when they visit in store, they hit online. Now you're going to start turning people into actual loyalists, because that's the key. People don't, you know, I'm a brand guy, I come from the brand world. Like, the idea that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it is true. It's true in any industry, whether you're selling weed or software or freaking milk, right? Like, you have to create some authenticity to a mission in order to make people loyal. That's what makes people pay more money or drive out of their way, because they feel that they have a connection to the brand. So if you lead with that brand storytelling and you lead with those experiences that are much more than just the products, you'll have a completely different relationship with the customers you're bringing on.
That's great. I'm going to put a pin in that authenticity thing, so I'm going to come back to that with you. But to ask a further question, I wanted to know, you mentioned loyalty a few times there, you know, and like, expanding is not just, you know, expanding beyond your physical boundaries and things like that, but I mean, expanding your relationship over time with a customer can be part of it too, you know? And again, I mentioned at the top of the panel, like, I work with some brands as well, you know, and it's always been difficult for us because we don't have the communication with the customer like the retailers do, you know? And I feel like some of the most advanced or sophisticated retailers have built loyalty programs and really like looked at ways that they can keep that customer coming, particularly as the markets become more competitive. So You mentioned in a conversation we had a little bit about a loyalty program. So how effective has that been, and how do you keep your customers? And Elliot, you can jump in on that as well, just about how you keep your customers.
Yeah, I mean, for us, that was one of the first things, 3 years ago when I came in to this role that we looked at doing. And one of the fascinating things I think about dispensaries and retailers in general is we have so much data on the customer because you have to scan a license, because of the products they're buying, because a lot of times it's intrinsically tied to something personal. We have so much more data than most other industries, but it's like this black box that nobody would touch, right? You walk into the store, you collect all this info, and then it's like, okay, well, hope they come back. But so one of the first things that we did was integrate a full data stack using Salesforce for our CRM. So now every person who comes in, we've got journeys for all sorts of different people based on their purchasing habits in order to create some of that loyalty. So if we know you're a flower buyer, we can target you with flower messaging. If we know that you're a high-end consistent buyer, we can put you on a VIP journey that drives you to those things. Definitely retaining customers, obviously we all know, is significantly cheaper than acquiring new ones. So we want to constantly be looking at it. We also don't want to just give away the margin. I think that's another thing that's kind of happened in this industry a little bit, is there's just become this aggressive promotional strategy that doesn't actually help the business that's trying to make money for a living. And so I think, we're seeing a lot of those artificial anchoring campaigns that are going on, where it's 20% off this, buy one, get that, get all these things. Those don't actually really add value to a customer. That person's probably coming in and they're just going to buy that product that day instead of that product. What we'd rather do is build programming and build experiences that actually add value for the customer. So whether that's, loyalty points and programming that way, whether that's cross-educational promotions with products, things that are good for the business and good for the consumer, rather than just shifting dollars left and right every week based on an EdCal. I think that's something that it's just become a really kind of sad trend. And I think it was somebody did it, they thought it got some business, and now half the places across the state have all these crazy different discounting programs that actually don't benefit the customer or benefit the business in any way. So.
What about you? How do you guys keep your customers?
So I agree with a good chunk of it. I'll get into the pricing issue at the end. I do think authenticity is, the number one thing that and customer loyalty, those and the messaging. So if we do have marketing, we do community outreach for its own good, but it's not lost on us that, it is a backdoor form of marketing. That's where we spend all our money. As far as the authenticity and how we built the brand, I do think we're building up, I don't want to use the word, a little cult following that's loyal to the message. They see that we're sincere, and with our community outreach, they see me out there. I don't know why this story came to mind. It might get me in a little bit of trouble, but I'll say it. I don't mean it in a bad way. But originally Connected Cannabis, who I love all the founders. They're great. They grow the best flower in the game. When we first opened stores, we were licensed in the name. They were running the stores. We ended up going out on our own. Long story short, everything is amicable. But when we opened our first store in Belmont Shore, and we were the owners of the store, I was super proud. The Grunion Gazette wanted to come down there and do an article, and I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna get my ass in the paper right now. So my narcissism kicked in a little bit, and I rolled out there. So they did a little paper. It was me standing next to one of the managers, and one of the founders who I really like. We have a good mutual respect. We like to bust each other balls. So it wasn't in a bad way. He's like, dude, you look fucking homeless. Don't be out in front again. You don't represent the brand well, right? But they're connected. I didn't take it the wrong way. I was like, I get it, right?
I did.
They're connected. They're the designer weed. But now that we have our own shot, right, and we're our own thing, and we're going out on our own, I'm like, fuck it. I'm building this brand, after our culture, after who I am. So at the end of the day, just hitting that authenticity and, the weed for the people and what it means, right? I think that's important. So, ironically, when, this is 2016, maybe early 17, and everybody has to form their own lifestyle and be authentic to their customers. But, my original, first big news article chance to get my face out there, I was like, yo, back the fuck up. So at the end of the day, it's pretty cool now that, the little fucking, this is what I wear, right? A little hat backward, unshaven. That's our brand. That's actually what's, attracting people. As far as the pricing issue, we have a big secret. It's the biggest fucking secret in cannabis. And I'm going to share it right now with everybody in the audience. You ready? Low fucking corporate overhead. And the way we outprice everybody is low corporate overhead. The people who work for our company have bought into the long game. And what they want to do is everybody who works at HQ, we call it, sounds a little fancy. We keep the staff really small. Everybody's got a little bit of equity. We're all playing the long game. So as far as passing the discount onto the consumer, I think it's really important. You have working class people. So the rest of it, I agree. On the latter, I'm going to, and respect the opinion, but going to take the opposite position on it. Weed for the people is that, right? And basically it's putting money back in the pocket of the consumers. I interview every single person that gets hired at Catalyst. I think it's important. Our HR person's laughing at my ass. I'll do them from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., 15 minutes each. I want to, learn about them real quick and then tell them about Catalyst. But the thing I've learned, 40% of them or so, when I ask them what their weakness is, one of my standard questions, they have anxiety or depression, they use cannabis to self-medicate. So I think it's an important community duty to have low pricing, pass that on to the consumer, whether they're working class, or side hustlers or struggling to get by and they're heavy smokers. Now instead of spending $300 a month on cannabis, they're spending $200 a month. And we feel really good putting the money back into the pocket of the consumer. And, maybe that saves us from having a fancy marketing budget. And, other than, Burner, who's the OG of influencers, I don't think influencers work in this game.
I agree.
I think that's very, very safe to say.
The biggest influencers in cannabis today are the fucking bud tenders, right? And everybody's running around trying to find the influencer. All they're doing is putting a name on the package, and you pay more for some flower that some other guy grew. So, while I appreciate the sentiments and everybody has a different approach, we feel very, very, very strongly on our pricing model, and we outprice the fuck out of anybody because A, we don't buy licenses, and B, we have low corporate overhead. And if the fucking government would get the fuck out of the way, we'd outprice the shit out of the BM too, right? And everybody's always coming to me and saying, oh, well, we're already the lowest. I'm like, we're not the fucking lowest. 75% of the market is BM, and we want to keep our prices down. So that's just always been a core value, how we run it. And if nothing else, at the end of the day, it makes me feel good at night when I put my head on the pillow to know that the working guy's got an extra $100 in his pocket at the end of the month that he could spend on whatever. And I always say, look, everybody likes to make a little bit of money. I'm not saying I'm going for sainthood or poverty, but I just sell weed to fund the fucking revolution. What really excites me is the advocacy in the industry, the community outreach that we do, and I don't need to suck up every last dollar. The number 2 guy in our company, our agreement since 2016 has been just pay me whenever you have money. And it's worked out for us, right? And my brother, there's only 3 of us who are the acquisition department. He don't make fucking nothing. He's got a side hustle. He's my little brother, so what are you gonna do? So everybody's, and I make 0 as the CEO. I do take the healthcare from the union because it was way better than mine. But other than that, and then, everybody who's here today, same thing, right? They're all making a little bit less to work for a company that they believe is doing the right thing. And at the end of the day, right, we do have some vested equity, and hopefully that's the long game payout. Everybody wants to make a little bit of money, but I do think that's one of our core values. And what I found, word of mouth is the most powerful motherfucking thing on the planet. And as I get a little more known and we go to grand openings, people will approach me. They're like, oh, I turned all my fucking friends onto you. We love how you do shit. So we are in this little tiny corner of the earth, and as people have asked, like, what's your marketing approach? And I say, man, let's just stay on the message, put the message out there. The people will find us. And I think that has been one of our core values.
Amazing, man. Yes, very good. Round of applause for that. Superb, dude. And you went into some of the where you were talking word of mouth there, like some of the specific marketing channels that perhaps have been really fruitful for you guys at Airfield Supply. Would you care to share some of them? Has word of mouth been sort of powerful? Like how have you guys kind of continued to keep sort of marketing?
Yeah, I mean, reputation is everything. I completely agree. Like at the end of the day, like you're not going to keep a customer unless the reputation lives up to it, right? Like brand promises, product experiences. That's 101. Channel-wise, obviously, like marketing in cannabis is like trying to do something with 2 hands tied behind your back kind of thing. It's like, just imagine any other industry if we could have access to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google. Like it'd be a completely different world. Not to say it'd be a better world, but like, sure, it'd be a hell of a lot easier to find people. So you obviously have to get super creative in thinking about it. I mean, content is fundamental for us. Organic content marketing, site content, and then in-store education too is a huge piece for us. We know we can get them in the store, using a variety of channels, whether that's digital, whether that's content, whether that's, promotions, activations, those kind of things, like on the marketing mix side. But that's only like half of the experience. So we spend a lot of time designing the in-store experience so that by the time they get to the counter in our current setup, it's a classic dispensary. You've got to wait in a line, you get to a counter, you order, you leave. So what we did was, especially over the course of COVID, started to look at how we stretch the experience to the farther part out, right? Like in the classic like Disneyland concept that the ride begins the moment you get in line. We started to think about what do we do in the line. So the first thing we did was we built a shop and shop that, we partner with brands, and it's a dedicated space right before you get to the counter where you can learn about a new product, you can get exposed to new flower, we do all sorts of different stuff. But we started to stretch the shopping experience. Then we stretched it and added an apparel and a smoke shop in line. Then we added like an information desk and a Q&A and a concierge. So that by the time you get to the counter, you've actually had like 3 or 4 interactions already shopping and doing it. All those things allow us to push messaging, to push programs, to push all these different things, whether we're wanting to guide someone in a specific direction or simply just teach things about it, like let's not just talk about fucking THC percentages all day. Let's talk about terpene profiles, right? Let's talk about things that actually matter to experience. We can do that in those times so that by the time they leave, they haven't just bought something, but they've learned something. And that'll help sort of translate our values of what we're trying to do and then begin to spread on the word of mouth side, I think, too, from there. And if that's constantly rotating, you keep an editorial calendar, right, that's keeping that fresh, that's getting new brands in there. They know every time I go to Airfield, I'm going to learn something. I may not give a shit, but I'm going to learn something. And even if it's just I'm walking out with the exact same eighth that I thought I was coming in for, at least they've now been exposed to a beverage or a tablet or a new kind of flower, whatever it is, And so that kind of consistency and curation and an experience is something we found to be like fundamentally game-changing in the way people walk out the door.
Amazing, man. And COVID, you mentioned, obviously, brick and mortar retail across the world got the shit kicked out of it last year, but dispensaries did all right, look at that. So how did it change you guys' business? Like, how did you adapt to it, and what are you going to keep from that sort of COVID period once it's over? I'd start with you, Elliot. It didn't slow you down by the sounds of it.
No, the interesting thing with COVID is, we actually had better sales than ever. People were staying at home, watching Netflix, smoking weed. It was unfortunate for the bars that they were closed down, but as far as just from a sales standpoint, it was good for us. I do want to touch on one thing you said about the customer experience. It's the most important thing. When they walk in, that they have a good experience, and you develop that undying loyalty. And it's a joke in our office. Like I said it once, and then it became a joke. I want them not just like when they leave, like, oh, that was good. I want them skipping and whistling and smiling on the way to the car. So like now when I talk about customer service, they'll do the like skipping and whistling. It's like a ongoing joke, but I definitely want them to leave. And on that, we're in 100% agreement. However you do the experience, you want them to feel, 100%, satisfied with it. As far as the COVID thing, it's been an interesting thing to navigate. We've had positive tests. I'm big on disclosure. So as people came out positive, boom, disclosed everybody, sent them back to get rapid retested, and we were able to stay open. I do think it's made us realize a few things as far as like, do we really need that big of a waiting room? We're moving them in, pretty quickly. It saved us a little money on samples. I'd like to see samples get brought back, but samples actually cost a lot of money, and now you could just be like, it's COVID. Look at
hand sanitizer.
Yeah, one kind of fun COVID story, and I hope people don't take this the wrong way, but it just comes to mind. So, we were able to stay open during the whole COVID. I'm always, again, super big on disclosure, even disclosed it to our customers when we had an outbreak. We probably had 30 total people who have ended up testing positive, and then, the rapid test place fucking loves me. We spent like 45, 50 grand in rapid retest, because you get an outbreak, it's 20 people, whatever, $150 a pop, it's $3 grand. You got to make sure they all test clean. So we had one outbreak where 3 people got it, and most of our bud tenders were young, so we never really had any serious illness. And they were like, there was 4 of them. They weren't sure if they were going to open. They were milling around. And you got to walk this fine line between keeping your employees safe and a certain culture that you want to develop at your company. So at the end of the day, it's disclosed. If you want to work. I paid double time, time and a half, depending on the situation. We did the hazard pay, but it looked like everybody was going to tap out. And I was like, it's only one day, but I want to set a certain example. So I rolled in to the store. I was like, yo, let's rock. I called my wife. Her friend came in. They butt tended. We were down to 4. I worked front desk for 9 fucking hours. I was the worst front desk operator ever. So, and I was pretty sure I was going to get a review like this motherfucker was on his phone all the time. The good thing is, though, like, all I had to say it was my first day, and they didn't know. I could have easily been a front desk person. So, but, then some people agreed to transfer from other stores. We were able to stay open, never, missed a beat. I was really proud of that. And then just the interactions. When we would get a positive test, I would personally call the people that tested positive, what do you want? Universally, they all wanted cannabis. So I would deliver it myself, put it through the little baggie if I could. And I think those little gestures to your employees carry a lot of weight. So, my big thing with COVID was the disclosure. If you wanted to make double time and you knew there was an outbreak at a store and everybody was tested and we sci-fi cleaned the place, then come on in. But I do think it created new first-time users and an opportunity to really expand the marketplace. Since the Deltas creeped in, we were like nothing for a while. We've had 1 or 2, incidences. And then last kind of funny thing I'll say is, we don't get into whether or not people want to get the vaccine. That's their own personal choice. But as a leader and CEO, I'm on the fence with a little bit of myself, I'm being honest, but I thought it was a good example to set for the employees. Then I gave everybody free weed that got the vaccine so we could encourage it, right? But we're never going to mandate it. We think people have the freedom to do what they want. Ironically, though, it wasn't my intention going in. I fucking know who got vaccinated and who didn't, because anybody who got vaccinated, not my intention, got the free weed.
Another free
yeah. But, the cannabis industry, I think, is, 30%, maybe 35% vaccinated just because of the distrust of the government and the distrust of Big Pharma. Then we had the riots. So during that, they kicked off pretty hard. We were out in the streets that night, with non-lethal weapons, but protecting what was ours. And we called it the bubblegum shrimp model. If we could survive this shit, right, we'll be one of the last shrimping boats out at sea. But it's just another example of, like, you can't plan where it's going to go, especially in cannabis. There's no guarantees. You got to stay nimble. You got to stay humble, and you got to, keep fighting. So it's tragic all the lives were lost. But I also think, on a positive note, we all rallied together. We saw how gritty and tough we were wherever we could. We all threw in, and it was a great, I think, introduction for people that weren't in cannabis, and sales of cannabis were higher than ever during that, that COVID time. I won't mention specific companies, but there is one public one that keeps saying that COVID hurt their sales. Total bullshit.
And Chris, this will be maybe our last question on this. So, further on the COVID thing, I remember in our conversation you were telling me a little bit about some of the changes that you guys had made to the back end flow sort of system to keep up with the curbside pickups and things like that. So, if you could sort of speak to that, but then also just tell us just a little bit about your culture of refinement and constant improvement at Airfield Supply, because I think that's a really important thing that you guys bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, and really that kind of sparks out of the COVID stuff in a lot of ways. I mean, when it hit in March, we're heavily invested in e-commerce, we were heavily invested in delivery, but we knew that it was like we had to pour gas on the fire immediately. We knew everyone's life was changing, the way people were functioning was completely different, and so we had to get at all of those things, which then meant we had to think about the logistical back end of how we make that happen. How do you go from a 4x increase in delivery overnight and be able to be packing bags at the same time that the retail store is dealing with new regulations around social distancing and everything there? So we had to basically take a step back and look at it as we're, ramping into these things. E-commerce doubles overnight, delivery quadruples overnight. How do we do it? We actually had to separate our inventory. So first thing we were literally packing off the same inventory. So first we started by looking at the logistics of it and saying, okay, we've got bottlenecks at packing. We've got bottlenecks at delivery, like physical bag delivery. We've got bottlenecks on the floor and all those kind of things. And so you start addressing them one by one. Then we realize, okay, we've got this space. Let's put our fulfillment department in there with separate inventory, but it's all the way in the back of the building. So then we had to blow a fucking hole in the wall and create an overhead conveyor that brings the bags from the back of the store to the front of the store so that we don't have humans running back and forth constantly violating all the social distancing rules. So, you start to just look at all the different things and say, okay, like, is this the best it can be for us, for our customers? And if not, then you got to fix it. Like, at the end of the day, you can't live and die on a brand if we're not addressing the problems that we either have or the opportunities we could create. So we're just constantly iterating and looking at it, saying, okay, customer experience, is it optimized? Is there something more we can add? And then once you start adding something, you realize, okay, now we got to work on the logistical side. You can't fuck our team over. So we're working on the fulfillment side of things. Same thing with us on the product side of the business. So we've been growing, for almost 12 years, vertically integrated. We had a house product brand that we really liked, but it was scaling more and more. We started wholesaling it. It wasn't to the level that we, really thought we could take it to. And so now we've spent the last 9 months working on our new brand, which we just launched here, by the way, shameless plug, booth C219. Go check it out,
here,
Aviation
buddy.
Cannabis. But a brand there that, we brought in now super premium flower that we're growing, everything on site, our own concentrates, our own vapes, everything being produced. Because we realized there is still a gap in the market. People were always coming to us for our flower, but we wanted to make sure that the representation of that flower was as good as it could possibly be. Now, obviously, we have the opportunity to go out and wholesale that too. But again, it's just this constant iteration and figuring out how far are we pushing it and how do we push it more? How do we push it more? How do we push it more?
Wonderful. What an interesting conversation, guys. Fantastic. Does anyone have any questions? We've maybe got time for one, two. Yes, sir. I think we have a microphone right behind you. Step on up, big dog.
Elliot, Chris, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it. Sorry, motherfucker.
It's every time. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, Elliot, Chris, thanks for the time. Elliot, I've been watching you on LinkedIn and your rants about politics and whatever. Airfield, you guys did $1 million in a day. What else can you say? Fucking incredible. My question to you guys is, you're looking at disposable income that happened because of COVID, and now that disposable income is being shut off. By the way, I've been to the Catalyst facility on 2nd Street and own a house on Livingston, right in Belmont Shore. My question to you is, you're going to look at 2022 and Q4 2021, you're going to see a drop precipitously because that extra stipend from the government is going to go away. People are being forced to spend money on gas to drive back to an office and everything else. You don't want to pay for weed maps because they suck. We both know that, okay? Yes, you did. Okay, I did. And you know what, I'm 11 weeks out of beta. I have 457 dispensaries use my technology in 7,000 CBD stores. So I understand what it is. It's about pay for performance. My question is, when you're looking at Long Beach, when you're looking at San Jose, when you're looking at Orange County, John Wayne, you've got tourist traffic. You've got people going to Disneyland. You've got people's OG there. You've got Planet 13. Larry just opened up a place there, okay? What are you going to do to get them to your place? How are you going to get that traffic? I know you're depending on locals, and Belmont Shore is landlocked. Let's not, the reality is they're locked to where they are, but the 710's accessible, the 405's accessible. It's not like being in Redondo. And of course, in the Empire off the 10, the 210, whatever. But my question, is really, how are you going to get them to come there? That's kind of what we do. Love to talk to you guys about it separately, but I'd like to hear what you're doing.
Yeah, one thing to touch on the check, the government checks. We actually not shamelessly, a stimulus special when the checks came out. We wanted people to have more money in their pocket for mental health. Really interesting, when the first round of stimulus checks hit, it was like a random Wednesday. And the fucking numbers were through the roof because I usually check in. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So I called a few other dispensary owners and they're like, us too. So those stimulus checks, and look, I know people have a judgment on it. I think mental health's the most important thing, right? I actually think, I never got the toilet paper thing. There's water, right? Like, I think like if you're going out and you're trying to survive, like water, a weapon, and some weed seem like if the world comes to an end, why are you fighting Why are you fighting over toilet paper? But when they took the checks away, we saw a little dip. So there's definitely a correlation. As far as, fighting other stores to come in Santa Ana, both Cookies and Planet 13, I have trouble saying their names sometimes, but try to stay respectful. But they both open, and our Santa Ana store has had the biggest numbers that we've ever had. And I think at the end of the day, everybody has their own model. But, and just so you know, only 8% of our customers come from Santa Ana. Because we're on the freeway, they drive. they come and see us. And I think ultimately, right, you want them to have that good experience. I couldn't agree more. But really the heavy consumers, the ones that are medicating, the ones that, self-medicate in the morning, are who you're trying to win. And our strategy, there's more than one strategy. We just outprice motherfuckers. And, I understand that Planet 13 spent $3 million on marketing, and they got some really fancy fucking waterfalls in there. It's not a knock on them. And they got, some really fancy artwork.
Can't smoke artwork. You can't smoke a waterfall. That price gets passed back onto the customer. I mean, what's the point of that?
But people are rolling in one and done. By the way, I got like 9 DMs from people that used to work over there that have left. So I'm confident no matter how many licenses they let in, because of our model, because of how efficient we are, we'll go toe-to-toe with anybody. And in theory, I was a little worried that 2 of those big heavy hitters were coming in. And, typically our Bellflower store is our biggest selling store. Santa Ana won last month, had the best numbers that it ever had. So, at the end of the day, I think the price is elastic. Look, there's other ways to get it. And as we're opening in the Inland Empire, people are like, fuck yeah, I don't have to drive. The one interesting issue that I will say is now that we're up to 4 in Long Beach, we are mildly cannibalizing ourselves. So I think, it's my hometown. I want to be the fucking, the biggest seller of cannabis in my hometown. But I think as we move forward, we probably won't get on top of each other, so much. But I think the value that we bring to the customer, I think our model has staying power. I'll go toe-to-toe with any retailer out there, put them across the street, and, just the way that I think.
Fucking go.
I like it. Just the way I think, we're ready to take them on. And look, at the end of the day, I do want to preach a message of unity. Ultimately, we're all trying to push legal, safe cannabis to the patients. And the state right now is our fucking enemy. Yes, we have our battles. Yes, we compete with each other. Yes, I like to jab here and there, use certain people on Instagram. But to leave on a message of positivity, the state is our fucking enemy. That's who we're fighting. At the end of the day, who's really paying it and where the BM gets it twisted, it's not us that's paying it. When I worked in the BM, our fucking margins were way better. It's taken out on the customer who's using it for mental health, who doesn't have the money, and it's the most fucking regressive tax there is. So that really, in the end, is our enemy. If they could get their shit together, remove the taxes, or substantially lower them, I mean a lot, I think the opportunity for success is endless.
Amazing. You got anything to add to that? Should we get on to the next question?
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate the 3 of you being here, taking time, I don't know how loud I am, to be up here instead of being out there. I'll try to make it quick. You both said a lot of stuff that I resonated with, specifically affordable cannabis and also low overhead. And with that in mind, I have a small cannabis brand, invested in myself, run everything. I have a small distro and sales team, wear many hats. What do people like me have to do to get on your shelves? Because my sales reps, where they lack, it's very difficult for me to get those meetings. I go into a shop, shake hands, it's usually pretty easy. I have weed that's a high quality that I sell for cheap. I'm gonna make you money. That's what I want to agree to. But how do I get those meetings? How do I get on your shelf? How do we connect with you? It's this some guy in the dark here.
Yeah, I mean, so I do my best to, I get DM'd a lot. So Bree's our purchaser. She's the gatekeeper. I'm not smart enough to know. I know good weed from bad weed. I'm old school. When it gets into dabs, butters, extract, I get fucking lost, right? I rely on the experts and what the pricing is going to be. As people come out to community events and they get involved or they reach out to me or they're a small farmer, and we have hundreds of requests. We do our best to get them on. I wish we could do it all. It is a question that we take super seriously. At the end of the day, we look at the product, we try to see what the pricing is, and any way we can, we put our thumb on the scale and try to help the small farmer. Ultimately, that's who we're trying to uplift. If you see the brands that we are supporting, it really is the OG farmers, the ones that we're standing on their shoulders, that the industry is built on. I will say this, DM me, Bree sitting right there. I like the balls. I like you coming on and asking the question. I'll do everything we can to get your product on the shelf. But again, and I'll say this to my mother or my sister, I don't have a sister, or whoever, that the product has to sell. So the other thing is I could get you on the shelf, right? But if it doesn't sell, it doesn't do anybody any good. But you could ask Bree. I'm walking in her office all the time. I'm like, what about this guy? What about this guy? Then some people I really like, And in a nice way, you know, we need a gatekeeper. She's like, that shit's trash. And I'm like, I got to go back to him and explain that. So we do try to address them as best we can, but there's only so much room. And we are thinking of putting in a program where at each store, as our footprint gets bigger, we can, you know, highlight one or two, you know, smaller brands. Maybe they don't have to be across the footprint, but I'm glad you asked the question. Before you leave, hit me up because we're all about the small farm.
Awesome. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. And on that other side too, you know, as a brand, we want to know what we can do to support you, TADs, et cetera. Like, you know, enlighten us, please.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to uniqueness at the end of the day. I mean, everyone's trying to create a portfolio that is interesting to the consumer, that offers something different, exposes interesting brands to people that you can have a conversation about and get it from there. So, like, to your point, like, the best thing to do is to show why it's unique, to show why it's different, because that's what's going to help. That's what's going to give you a shot, right? Demand is demand, right? If it doesn't sell, doesn't sell. But, you know, figuring out a way to tell that story, or figuring out a way to show the demand. I mean, we've had brands that we've said no to for literally years and years and years, and politely good people with great products, but it just didn't feel like it fit the portfolio in the right way. But at a certain point, when you start to see the consumer demand coming on, and you can see, you know, maybe we're missing an opportunity if we're not bringing this on and trialing it, then you know from there. So there's always different levers you can pull, but at the end of the day, it's about uniqueness, perspective, and the opportunity to drive something.
Well, guys, I hope we all had a fantastic time, learned a lot. Definitely come up and say hello to the guys, myself afterwards. And thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your time at Hall of Flowers.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.